Hello, my name is Karina. This is Creative Everyday Life, and in this video I will show you how I used a sketchpad to make a guest book. So first I tore out all of the pages and folded them in half. After folding all of the sheets, I grouped them into stacks of 5, also called signatures, and I made 12 of these. After making the signatures, I cut out a front and a back from the backing of the pad. You can also use a normal cardboard for this. I just made it a little bit bigger than the sheets, but about the same size. I then cut out the spine from an old drawing pad. I ended up making it about 2 centimeters. That was about the size of the signatures in the middle, and the signatures is what will define how big the spine has to be. Then I marked on a piece of cardboard how much distance there would be between the holes, and I used a silk ribbon in between the spine, so I used those as a measuring guide on how much distance there has to be between them. And then I marked with a pencil on every single sheet using a ruler. After doing this, I poked every single hole with an awl. You can also use a very sharp needle, just be careful with your fingers, and you can also choose to saw this. I would like to try that one time in the future, but for this case I use an awl and a needle for some of it, because I broke the tip of my awl. I sewed the sheets together with normal embroidery threads, and the first signature I did very loosely so that I could place the silk ribbon, and I just put some tape on them so they would be steady. And the second sheet I bound the first 2 sheets together, leaving the knot on the back where it will stay, since I will be gluing the whole thing together. And then I was just simply moving, using the most outer ends. I would secure the sheets to each other, and in the middle I would go around the ribbons back and forth through the sheets to ensure that everything was in place like that. this should be an old form of making books as far as I can tell, but it works very well. It was time to glue it all together. I fastened the silk ribbon with tape, and then I put 2 wooden chopping board on each side and screwed them together using clamps on both sides, since I do not have actual bookbinding equipment. I'm just using this and it worked very fine, so I will definitely be doing this again. When it was all in place, I took the glue and a painting brush and simply painted the glue over all of the spine so that everything was in place, and let it dry while I was fixing the backing. So for the cover, I put a piece of normal paper in between just to secure it all, and I don't know if this is normal, but I saw someone do it, and what I did also was to glue the paper for the cover part on the front and the back on one side, and then the spine I glued in on the other side, as you can tell. This should, as far as I understand, make it stand out a bit better, but I was very pleased with the results, so yeah, but you can tell for yourself. After that, I used some linen that I had from a skirt project and just cut it into size a bit bigger, trimmed off the corners, and then put glue on the entire cover before putting the fabric on, pressing it in place. carefully trimmed out any excess fabric and pressed the fabric on with glue, being sure that no corner was exposed. After finishing this part, I put normal paper on the top just to cover up the edges, and then I put a little more fancy paper in the middle for the spine. I didn't know if it would be exposed, but it was not, so that is completely optional. While the cover was drying, I put on a new coat of glue on my signatures, and then I put in the ribbon that I used for a bookmark and glued that in place before putting on a piece of fabric that was a bit shorter than the height of the book and a little bit longer than the spine, so I could cut it in place afterwards. Then I continued to work on the spine. I wanted to decorate it. This is an old embroidery that normally would be able to be ironed on, but since it is very old, I found it in a vintage store, I had to simply glue it on instead, and that worked fine. I pressed it under a heavy book until it was dry, and then I proceeded to use some fabric color and water to color the letters on the book. I tried to make this look very old-fashioned and beautiful, but of course it looked both unique and handmade since I painted it all by hand. I did try to draw it up beforehand just to be sure that it would fit in size, and that was very helpful. When the sheets were all dry, I ended up using a hairdryer to make it dry a little bit faster, but you can just leave it overnight. When it was all dried, I took off the chopping boards. Then I hammered on the edges just to soften it a bit, so that the sheets will not be too stiff. took some colored design paper or whatever you will call it, and cut those in place so that they will be just a little bit smaller than the sheets, just to be sure that they will not go over the ends of the cover. Then I glued them in to the first and the last pages so that they will be ready to go. I used a normal glue for this, and another time I think I will just use the same glue as I have done for everything else, since this doesn't seem as easy to get sticking, but it worked fine. So if you have nothing else, you can of course just use this. When everything was dried, I took the glue and I put it directly on the outer sheets and covered them completely with a painting brush before placing it inside of the cover. I just put it in where I wanted it to sit and then closed the book, and then it fitted very nicely. Afterwards I pressed it down and then I smoothed out the pages. Let me know if you have a better trick to make it more smooth on the inside. Then I opened the back of the cover and did the painting of glue on the last sheet before closing it and pressing again. And then all it needed was to just dry, and then this guest book was completely done. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you're using guestbook for anything where you live. Have a very nice day and God bless you.